I started the show with a mute. That's not a great start. A bit like Newcastle's transfer window. And the only thing that can remedy that, would that be, oh gosh, could that be a home tie to Tottenham at St James's Park? Will the Magpies find a way to regain their momentum this season? Find out right here on Toon Tactics TV, folks.
Brilliant from Shea. And now Murphy could take on the shot. Fabian Shea
Right, folks, how are you all doing? How's your Saturday morning going before the Premier League games kick off? I thought, let's do some pre-match preview for the Tottenham game, obviously at St James's Park. But before we get into the crux of the game and before hopefully our guest arrives, I wanted to kind of have a little bit of a parlay with you guys, a bit of a conversation with those that are on the chat, with those that are live here today. How would you guys assess Newcastle's transfer window now that it's been closed and now that all the speculation, all that has been said and done has been concluded, has been put to bed? The players that we were supposed to get, who were supposed to leave, have not left, and the players that we were supposed to get, we did not get. Some of the speculation was true. Some of the speculation was obviously wrong. And what does it all mean for Newcastle for this season? Do you feel like we have essentially, are we caught in neutral, where neither going forward or neither going backwards, or do you think we've gained the gear? Maybe, you know, we haven't got some of our first team quality players that we wanted to have, but we have got a few foundational transfers that we have made. Obviously, Olusola, a raw striker who could play across the front three that we got from Sheffield United. We've got a couple goalkeepers as well. Or do you guys think that? So is this the foundation that we can go forward with, or do you guys think that this is not enough? Also, who's to blame? If there is anybody to blame, who is to blame? Is it Darren Eales? Is it Paul Mitchell? Is it Eddie Howe? Is it the owners? Is it Mirdad and Amanda Staveley? Is it Piff? What is it? Who would you say? Is there, if at all, if there is anybody to blame? I feel like, in my opinion, seeing these conversations on social media in particularly, and I know that I feel like the more I kind of, you know, I've only started, the more I'm seeing things on social media, the more it's like, this is just like, it's not a barometer for what I think is going on in the fan base, because, and I'm going to lead you guys to an article from The Athletic that came out literally today, a few minutes before I came on live with you. Obviously, I think it's Mr. Douglas, the journalist, who always gives a very balanced perspective on things. He shows his mind and he tells the truth, or his truth. But he always gives a balanced perspective. And I'm obviously, because it's behind the paywall, I'm kind of going to go through the conclusion, but I'm going to give you a summary of the article itself. I don't necessarily, when I look at social media, everyone's kind of looking for this person to blame, for that person to blame. And I think there's a separate arguments about why certain things haven't happened in the transfer window. The other arguments are, of course, Newcastle have either gone backwards or have stood still. And also look how everybody else has improved, and look where we're at. How comes Chelsea can do this? Why can't Newcastle can do that? So within that, in terms of transfers for Newcastle, there are so many different kind of argument, the kind of ways of looking at it and ways of approaching it, that I think we can all kind of get lost in the source, if you can say. They will get lost in the mix of what actually happened, what is going on. But I'm going to quickly read it and show you. My guest has arrived, so I'm going to I'll get back to you guys about just before I I get over to you guys. I want to share this quick article from The Athletic, and it's the conclusion part of it of what Mr. Douglas was saying. So let me just make sure you guys can see it. Yeah, here we go. I'm not going to take the mic. It's behind the paywall. So this is obviously his conclusion in regards to it, and he kind of goes through kind of the ins and outs of it from the beginning to the end. But the conclusion, he says, training has always been part of the summer's plans. In July, Ill said about PSR, we do not want to be leaving ourselves in that situation again in such tight circumstances. But while there was no scramble in the second half of the two window, I think that's obviously talking about the June deadline date, obviously when we had to sell Mr. Elliot Anderson and Yakumba Minte, and obviously then going on to after that, so two-part window. There was no big signing either. We're in a very difficult situation with PSR. This is Ills speaking, a quote from Ills. Available funds and attracting the right players who can make the difference. It's such a delicate spot. We've got to get it right. And doing nothing, as frustrating as that is probably the best option. That's Hal that said that. Until January, the difficulty is all his. So Mark Douglas basically explained a lot of the situations in this article that didn't work out for Newcastle, and it's a lot to do with the timings. Obviously, having to sell Elliot Anderson and Yankumba Minte, we were £70 million in the hole, and we were already going for a payment structure with Liverpool about selling Anthony Gordon and also getting Gomez back. So we're going to sell Anthony Gordon from anywhere to 40 to 50 million pounds plus Gomez, and that would have been absolutely insane. And so I think one of the drives for Newcastle going into this summer window is we do not want to be in that position again. We don't want to be in the next summer window, and I'm going to use Tottenham as an example, and we're £70 million in the hole, and Isak becomes available for £40 million. That would be painful. So that's one of the key drivers from a director's CEO point of view. We don't want to be in that situation again. However, we do have some money now that we're back in the black. We need to be able to spend it wisely, and spending it wisely has been affected, obviously, in a good and bad way. Obviously, we've got Mr. Mitchell in, we've got Eddie Howe in. They had to go through a process of realignment about who they want and when they want it, but the timings were off in terms of player sales. It wasn't just Gahey that was the person we're trying to buy. There were other defenders, Tapsoba, everything. Obviously, Malik Chow, but some of those deals wasn't right. And eventually, it all culminated. There's other things I didn't mention from the article, in a situation where trying to get the players that we wanted just wasn't for us. So the best thing to do was hold on tight and go into the next summer transfer window. I'm not arguing whether that's the right thing or the wrong thing. I think what Douglas is just saying, this is essentially what's happened. And so we are where we are. So what's the remedy for that? What's going to lift the fans up today? Or how about a home tie to Tottenham, to Tottenham Hotspurs? That might make things a little bit better. And I get the opportunity and this segue to invite our guest on. And before I just introduce him and say, look, you guys would have seen my previous pre-match preview for the Bournemouth game where I was using, these highlights in games and stuff like that. This man is the godfather of those things. And so I got to really kind of learn from his own analysis of his team. Even though he supports Tottenham and he's Tottenham-focused staff, I get to learn a lot about tactics and obviously how to present it to an audience for this gentleman, from this gentleman. So I'm super, super excited to invite him on today and to be able to have a good breakdown for that Tottenham game. Folks, please do welcome Mr. Asthmatic. How are you doing, sir?
Yes, to big yourself up, big up everyone in the comments. Toon Tactics TV, big channel. Thanks for having me on once again. Yeah, man, it's a pleasure to be here. Very humble. Thanks for your kind words. But let's chop it up. Let's get into it. Let's break down what Postecoglou is doing at Tottenham, and let's see how Eddie Howe can get around it.
Looking forward to it. I know, obviously, you was backstage, and before we kind of get into the nitty and the gritty of the tactics and everything else, I know you got your tactical board and everything else. So I'm super excited to see that. You've obviously heard. I've got a couple of questions. So you've obviously heard, some of the, I'm kind of warming the context into this game. There's always, before any game, yes, there's the tactic stuff, the strategy, everything that's going on behind it, but there's always a context behind it. We're trying to work out what's going to be the atmosphere, what's going to be the psychology, the motivation of the players, the managers, the teams going into this game. Obviously, you heard some of the what's been happening with Newcastle going into this game, and obviously, like I said, depending on who you speak to, I'm just looking at it from a social media point of view. A lot of Newcastle fans and journalists, to be honest, feel that this is a really kind of missed opportunity for Newcastle in upgrading. We really wanted a right winger, we really wanted a right centre back, and that hasn't happened. So for me, going into this game, for instance, because games are all about momentum, is God forbid Tottenham score the first goal and the second goal, then you could have a kind of a crowd now beginning, kind of really murmuring and dissipating. So the context of it for Newcastle is high stakes. From a Tottenham perspective, going into this game and everything else entailed in it, your own transfer window, your own psychology. Obviously, you mentioned Ange Postecoglou. How do you think Tottenham are going into this game? What do you think? Where's the motivation? Where's the psychology? If we're kind of psychoanalyze analyze a bit going into this game. Where do you think Tottenham are at this stage?
Straight revenge, bro. It's 2-peat. You can't make it a 3-peat. It's simple as that. I think Andrew's going to be talking to the lads like it's a cup final,
Right.
Obviously, we went and played you in a pre-season friendly, but that doesn't count. Do you know what I'm saying? Nothing game. We drew 1-1. There was no stakes in that, and I think it was just a money thing, Andrew taking advantage. You man agreed. Peas were swapped, But I think looking to this game, your fans, and I think your manager as well, echoed the feelings of the club and the fans, and he kind of gets it. Do you know what I mean? Whereas Ange, at the end of the press conference, he was like, I'm quite happy with the window. Do you know what I mean? I'm quite happy with the business we've done. And to add some context, he was saying that, every team has their phase. Do you know what I'm saying? A bit like, like in like Marvel, you've got different Spider-Mans, and then Spider-Man comes off, or like the Avengers, it came to that cycle, and now it's it's time for a new crop to come over. He was saying that we've got rid of quite a lot of players. I don't know how much Newcastle got rid of, but we got rid
not a lot.
To let you know, we got rid of 10 players, 10 senior players from our squad, and we loaned out 5 as well. So a total of 15, between 15 and 16 players went out. And so that's why a lot of people, not a lot of people, the fan base is slightly split, I'd say, because some of the fans are saying, brilliant window, we got rid of the deadwoods. Getting rid of the deadwood means you don't have bad characters in the dressing room. You don't have players that don't fit the style of the system in the team. And also wages are lowered, as I heard you talking in the background about, FFP, etc. It gives us more room to maneuver in windows going forward, e.g. the next summer window. Some might say Jan. I don't really look at that. It's only if emergencies happen, then you kind of dip into that January window. But I think he was basically saying it was a well thought out process, and the fact that they brought younger players in was because they're thinking long term. So they're looking at some of the players. They don't want to block pathways. That was the example he gave in terms of not getting a centre back. A lot of fans were disappointed that we didn't get cover for Mickey van der Ven. or even for your doggy, because when those two were out, that's when our season kind of fell apart.
Right.
Minds. So going into it, he's come out and said, I'm very positive with the signings that we've made, and I'm quite happy. He feels like he's being backed, essentially. So that's what's going on at the moment. So he's going in like he's got the players he wants. I think the striker we bought broke our transfer window in Dominic Solanke, and that sounds like he's really happy with that signing. However, he is injured, so he won't be playing.
Are you sure?
It's a massive. Yeah. It's
not to say, oh, it's great he's injured, but like, yeah.
No. When we were talking on, because we did a show, me and Toon, on Wednesday.
Watched it.
I wasn't sure if it was a smoke screen, and he came out in a press conference, and he confirmed that both him and Richarlison will be missing for that game.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Van der Ven will be fit, because that was the one that was worried about Van der Ven not being there. But Richarlison, striker, meant to be the striker to give Solanke competition, but yeah, he's out. Okay. So it leaves us with Son, who played up top in the last game as an option. A lot of people are asking for Kulusevski to play there because he played there pretty much the whole pre-season. And I think in terms of, I know we're going to get into it, the last game we played against you at St. James's Park, Kulusevski never started, and I think he was a massive miss at St. James's Park in terms of what he brings in physicality, him being able to hold on to the ball, hold on to possession, his actual ability to dribble past players. That was kind of missing. We had started with Werner and Johnson up top.
Yeah.
It was funny enough because Son actually got taken off. He actually started up top. He got taken off in the second half about 10 minutes or 15 minutes into that game. And that's when we brought Kulu on. But we put Kulu as a right winger and we put Johnson up top in the three-man attacking forward line with Werner on the left. So going into this game, my question marks were, and I don't know if you want to segue into this now, but my question was, what will be our starting lineup? Will our starting lineup be the same as an Everton, who we got the 3 points against? Do you change a winning team, a team that won 4-0? Who gets dropped? Do you know what I mean? Or do you look at the team and you adjust to the team that you're playing, or we are who we are, mate? Do you know what I mean? Who we are. This is who we are. And so, you know, barbecue settings. Like, I don't know if there's going to be any food cooked on Sunday. It'll be interesting to see what happens. But yeah, I think that's the mood going into it. Lots of fans are fearful because we did get pumped for. So the mood is very like, oh, if we get a point, lots of people will be happy. People will be shocked if we do come away with 3 points. Very shocked. But yeah, I think watching that game back, we were the architect of our own mistakes. I mean, you guys did press very well, but I think the mistake from Udogie, when he slipped over, allowed I think it was Anthony Gordon in, and that's when it all unraveled. And Van der Ven did Olympics and gymnastics that he should have been going in for the Netherlands. He should have 24 seem like that. And then
some
another
of those pictures that's iconic, like people have like framed
on the street. I don't want to see that again. And then also Porro doing that back pass. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Over the top.
Yes.
But that was forced through errors from your part. When I think Isaac was pressing Vicario, and Vicario was forced to go along. We didn't really handle that in the channels too well, and then that's when it came back to Porro. Porro decided to play it back blindly, not looking where he was doing, and then before you know it, we're 2 now. Like literally, they were doing the commentary of the first goal. It's in the back of the net. Like, yeah, I was saying, you see the fans going like that, crazy. I said, it's going to be a long day. It felt like the Stellini of, when
Yeah. They were still doing a replay. Literally, they was actually doing a replay. I'm like, what?
couldn't believe it, bro. I was like, bro. Man, looking like,
Scott,
okay.
I got a comment here from Ben Spurs. I think it's for you. We still are going to start Johnson, and we are a VDV injury away from a meltdown. Very poor window. If I can just say before you go for that, Ash, it's interesting for me to hear that, because I'm like you said, you've loaned and sold about 15 players. You brought in some good youngsters. Just from the top of my head, obviously Solanke and Gray are like £100 million, or just over £100 million combined. I know there's a few other players as well. For me, if you told Newcastle about that, fans were like, "Whoa, that's a great window." We're like, "Whoa."
You know what it is? Sorry to interject. I think
No, go on.
the expectation, what Ange was like, listen, I want to be backed early. I want players in early, right? And I'm going for the title. The thing is, Solanke never went to no Euros. So when we were waiting, thinking, oh, you know what? Maybe like when the players come back from the Euros, we'll get some of those high quality players that Ange is talking about for challenging for the title. Euros passed through, and none of the players that we brought in were actually at the Euros. In fact, Odeber was at the Olympics. Do you know what I'm saying? And was still brought in relatively quick, after we bought him. So it's like people were scratching their head. And also, I think no one saw it coming. Even like Solanke, no one saw Solanke coming. I mean, there was a few people saying that, they rated him and, we should look at him and get him in. But the majority of fans never thought Solanke was going to be one of the players we brought in. And then for so much money on top as well, 65 million, people are having questions and eyebrows because he only had one standout season. And the season before last, he hadn't really put more than 10 goals in the back of the net, which people thought was quite concerning. Okay. So, and then the season before that, you have to look towards the championship before you got numbers up. But yeah, and I think that's the reason why people were a little bit about that one. What's going on here? But then a lot of fans thought, okay, Solanke, we can live with it if we get like, the marquee signing, not realizing that Solanke was the marquee signing. Like Scooby-Doo, yeah, when they just unveil the mask. And Solanke just underneath it. You're like, oh. Yeah, guys, we spent over 100 million. Whoa,
yeah.
Money. Do you know what I mean? So that's why the mood's a little bit off. But I mean, to caveat it, like if there is a caveat, like I would say that, if we're looking at profiles, that's the buzzword at the moment. I like to say players that, feel certain requirements to do the job that works and makes the system tick, then you'd say we've done good business, because we needed a striker, someone that could either run in behind or sometimes play with his back to goal. And Solanke does both. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
The players into play. And it's a lot of his off-ball work that, people are liking. Good aerial threat, good height as well, physicality, can pass. So not the level of Kane, obviously, but again, he's a player that suits the system, and that's what we wanted essentially for Ange Ball. Someone that can press as well, win the ball high up, and that's statistically, if we're going by the data, that's what he did really well at Bournemouth, and that's why we're bringing him in, and yeah. You're gonna say something, go on.
No, I was gonna say, like, I was gonna add more, but before we get to the tactical stuff, why I am, or I think we're gonna talk about why I am quite happy that he's not available. I'm not happy about him being injured, but I'm happy that he's not available. And at the same time, just going to touch on your transfer window, like there's not many Kanes about. Like I don't know if people have noticed that there's not many Harry Kanes around either. But also in terms of position, yeah. And look, people are this, and sometimes if we have to almost like look outside of our clubs. to kind of have a little bit more perspective or a wider perspective on our own transfer window. So, okay, you didn't get Solanke before the Euros. He wasn't at the Euros, but you obviously got him from Bournemouth. Bournemouth also have to get a replacement striker or, someone else in their pitch. And maybe that person is at the Euros, so they wait. Maybe everything is sorted with Solanke. Fee agreed everything, but they can't press that button until Bournemouth find their replacement. Also, there's opportunities. I mean, I mentioned earlier, people don't know how serious this is. Newcastle were 48 to 36 hours away of having to sell Gordon and Isak. You will be a fool not to at least put yourself in the running for that. Like, if you just bought Solanke and Isak was available, but maybe Arsenal didn't have the money for it. Maybe someone else, and he was like, I would have come. The worst case scenario, and you bought Solanke. If you guys are peeved about your window now, imagine how you'd have been feeling. So I'm just saying this. So go.
I know I do sympathize with you because obviously you guys were after the centre back the whole way, and I remember mentioning Tapsoba to you because our fans were really pissed off when we didn't get Tapsoba and we got Mickey Van der Ven instead. But for me, still, like, I do appreciate what Tapsoba brings in a team because, like, tactically, he can jump into the midfield and he's a ball playing centre back, a little bit different to what Mickey Van der Ven offers. He kind of offers that blistering pace, that recovery, ball winning attributes defensively, and he's crucial to the way we play our higher line. Do you know what I mean? So we both offer things differently, and I also think having a Tapsoba, he takes, not that you guys really need that pressure, but he allows you to build up in a different, slightly different way. So it takes the onus off Bruno Guimaraes or allows them to maybe form a double pivot, or allows them a bit like what City do when they get one of the backs jumping into the midfield. When Rodri pulls up a little bit higher, or sometimes they want to progress the ball. Sometimes it's not a single pivot; it turns into two sixes, essentially two defensive midfielders. You saw Pep do it in the early stage with Fernandinho. Fernandinho used to jump into the centre back, and he used to play with a three. And he was, instead of having a defensive midfielder, he plays a centre back, and he progresses the ball, etc. So I thought, maybe you guys will be looking at that, and that would be a good signing. But nothing happened, to be fair. And if I was a Newcastle fan, I'll be bitterly disappointed for that. And also Minte, allowing him to go to Brighton and not receiving a right winger for Almiron, it looked like he was on his way out, to be fair, but he stayed for it for whatever reason. So again,
we've been trying to send him to Saudi Arabia for 20-25 mil, but he doesn't want to go there. He wants to go to America. The only American team that came was for £10 million. So these are the problems that have obviously occurred from Newcastle that we can't do. Players want to stay. They want to be. And look, he's entitled to play where he wants to play. You can't just say we're taking the holiday to Saudi Arabia today, and then just leave him there. And
what for me is like there was so much excitement like the season before because of the owners coming in. The season before that, sorry. But that cash injection, etc. And then they brought in the rules when you guys had that takeover from progressing and getting to the next level. I still think Newcastle are a good outfit, a strong side, but the fact that other teams now, vultures are circling around some of your top talents and you're having to fend them off to hang on to them will be quite frustrating. If I was a Spurs fan and we're trying to build and we've got all this money now, like imagine we take your girl, your babes, take your sweetheart, Amanda, and she says, Ash, here's 600 M's. I'm gonna drop that on you. So you can get a couple rollies, go on nice holidays, vacations. You pick out what you want. You pick out what shoes you like. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
All of a sudden, they're doing it for tax evasion and saying, no, babes, I can't spend the money. My money's frozen.
Right.
Then all of Or the man them are knocking on my door saying, yeah, that rollie looks kind of nice. Still, I like them shoes. Yeah. Hey, listen, I'm kind of moving nervous. And Romero, you know, that would be a great example. If teams start looking out at Romero and Van de Ven, as soon as we started to try and build, I'll be like, oh man, why is football like this? As soon as we try to get up and you want to try to crash us down, why?
Yeah.
I kind of sympathize with you guys, man. I feel like, yeah, man, it's a nasty world. Some people won't because they're like, Saudi money.
Yeah.
Good. Guys try to do a Chelsea. No. You know what I mean? Get the dummy out of the, you know, out the mouth. But yeah, there's pluses and minuses to both sides, you know, for both of us as fans.
I 100% agree. And I know that, and I understand the arguments like in terms of people saying obviously PSR is necessarily helps growth, but it's obviously it stops people from clubs from going under, but also you can still grow and stuff like that. And then they say, you know, Man City or Newcastle would be fake clubs if the owners could just buy anything, could be artificial growth, all this type of things. And I understand that. And they kind of always point to Brighton as the leading example of how growth should be. But Brighton can lose a sporting director, manager, Casado, and who's the other guy that missed it? McAllister, all in the same. If that's the equivalent of us losing Eddie Howe, Paul Mitchell, Bruno Gomes, Tonali in the same window, say, yeah, look, organic growth. I'm like, what? This is insane. So I just don't see that as the point of view. So it's always going to be reform. But let's go into the comments. I'm going to go through the comments and then we'll go into the tactics. I've been promising you guys we're going to the tactics. We actually are going to do really going to delve into it, but it's brilliant. So Early Doors Football TV, love that name. Morning, gents. Hope you're both well. First time on your channel, subbed and like. Big up to you, Early Doors, and please do, guys, continue to support the channel with your subs and your likes. Appreciate that. Spot on, Ash. This guy told us we are challenging. I thought he was talking about me for a minute. I'm like, spot on, Ash. This guy told us we are challenging. Then we signed guys like Werner, Solanke, and a bunch of kids. Kieran Brotherston, Newcastle and Spurs have had similar transfer windows. I don't know. A lot of promise from the clubs, but we both didn't get much of. Okay, but we didn't get much of anything. I think it's down to expectations. It depends on all kind of fans' expectations, really. And Early Doors Football again. Morning, Ben. Spurs seems in the win. Spurs seems in this window. Majority of clubs bought younger players compared to those aged over 28 to 30. Think it's around 370 million. Okay. Wow. Okay. And question? All right. So, do you think Prem clubs missed a trick in not signing Tony? We'll answer that question before we go into the tactics. Give us we won't go too long into it, but what's your views on that, Ash?
I think he's a weapon. I mean, the only excuse I can think is a lot of these managers now, they're trying to get players that don't disrupt the dressing room, characters that, people that can integrate, less maverick types, people that, less Basumas, shall I say? Basumas, doing up balloons, you know what I'm saying?
I don't know why, because Nkunku can do it on the pitch, like in front of everybody. Like every time he celebrates. So.
You know what I mean? Or players that have a bit more edge to them. And I think, there's different, characteristics you want in the dressing room. You don't want all people get along gang. Do you know what I'm saying? Some people you want to kind of question. It's a bit like in the fan base, you don't always want listen to a panel and everyone's agreeing. Do you know what I mean? You want a bit of back and forth because you want your minds to be opened. You want critical thinking. You want to learn as well. And if you hear someone else's different opinion, you're like, actually, you know what? I haven't looked at that same subjective thing I was looking at, but in that particular light. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
So Tony coming in for me is a different type of weapon. He's physical in the air like no other. Do you know what I'm saying? In terms of the aerial threat and just bullying teams, he's a throwback. Do you know what I'm saying? To maybe like a Troy Deeney. You know what I'm saying? Physical like that. I was so impressed when he was playing for England. Like Kane came off, he came on, and aerially he was just dominating teams. I was like, wow, look at that. And then even like when he was getting balls pulled like stung into him, he was able to pin the centre back. Centre back couldn't move, like frozen. You know what I'm saying? Stuck in the mud. And then he's able to distribute as well. He's got a pass on him. Like I was like, wow. Like so, these are the type of things you start to appreciate of a player. And then like, when I go back to character, he's a type of person like people critiquing Solanke, like they're not sure if he's got that nastiness, that kind of killer instinct that you want in a number 9. Do you know what I mean? Like ruthlessness. You're just an absolute killer. And with Spurs, you always go back to.
He's nice. Mourinho. He's a nice guy.
He's a nice guy. You always go back to Mourinho, and he's like,
that's
too many nice guys. Have to be, you know what I'm saying? It's early. I don't know if kids are watching, but you can cry if your dad's allowed you to, or your mom, or your stepdad, whoever, or your guardian.
I have to say, in my analytics, it was saying at least a quarter of our viewers watch Toon Tactics TV on the big screen. So,
okay. But you get my point. He's a different type of. Sometimes I felt like, especially in the Leicester game, Spurs' underbelly was so soft when that goal went in. The crowd got up for it, and I go back to that Newcastle game. It was like we went 2-0 down, and it was like, all right, what are we going to do now? Are we going to crumble, or are we going to man up? Are we going to rise to the occasion? Who are we looking to? And then, the big argument in our fan base, not really much of an argument anymore, is Son a captain, because Son's a nice guy. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So you're looking at
the mic down like this, and
but I think
his dad isn't nice though.
yeah. But I like to think that a reason why Ange said he's the captain and he's got 2 other vice captains is because maybe he knew Son's shortcomings and he thought Romero is more of that kind of traditional,
yes,
you know what I'm saying, Rockweiler type, and then Maddison's kind of got that kind of, I'm that guy, I'm the arrogance, give me the ball, I'm gonna do it kind of guy, I'm the man. Give the ball, I'm the number 10. Give the ball to me. So when Son, a lot of the young players, they respect him, and he's a likable character, and I think they all respect him, want to play for him. But in terms of like putting your team up the pitch, I think that's why Ange might have looked for those vice captains. So, but yeah, going back to that Tony, because I've completely digressed.
That makes
Tony again is another character. Like I think you put him in a Spurs shirt or any shirt, do you know what I mean? Any team. And he's a different profile. He's a different character. Yes, he may not be clinical. Yes, he scores a lot of penalties. Do you know what I mean? But you just saw the mentality of the guy. No look penalty, bro, on the biggest stage. Yeah, and I could do it anywhere. The fact that people didn't like the fact that he was saying, "Look, I want to play for Liverpool. I want to play for Arsenal." He's basically saying, "I rate myself. I'm a big dog here, and I can get myself to the level I think I can." He hasn't shown that by going to Saudi Arabia. He's just sold out now. Like all of that goes down the pan. Do you know what I mean? But it has to be that the only reason why managers avoided them because maybe they felt they couldn't control a brother like that. He might think, right, he's too much of a road man. I'm joking.
I think that says more about them than it does about him. Then, like, do you know what I mean? Like, I feel. Like you said, Alex Ferguson had Roy Keane.
But yeah,
I think if that's the truth, if that's the case of it, Arteta, whoever, like, I can't handle him. I think that's just more about Arteta.
Like, shut up.
But he seems more liked. I don't know if you saw him when he returned to Brentford from his England excursions. They're all clapping for him.
He seems a nice, likable guy. I've seen a few interviews with him, and I'm like, bro, the guy seems down to earth. Like, he just seems like one of the normal guys. I don't know what's going on. I don't know if it was wage demands, like he was asking too much,
maybe,
or I can't really piece together what really is the reason why people said nah. Do you know what I mean? I mean, footballing wise, you could say if you take away those penalties, how much open play goals is he
How would he
getting?
be like in a low block? All of that
Oh,
kind of stuff.
exactly. How clinical is he really? Do you know what I mean? Those are questions you could probably ask. But outside of his actual goal scoring, I think he offers a lot. And yeah, for people not to go in for him, and also the style of play, does he suit the system? Because I think in a Liverpool team where Liverpool cross the ball quite a lot, Newcastle possibly they cross the ball into the box quite a bit. Like, do you know what I mean? If you've not got that team that crosses the ball into the box and can get like Tony onto headers, then are you utilizing his best strengths? Is he
Yeah,
best served at your club? Do you know what I mean? Because right now the talk is systems over players. Do you know what I mean?
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
like, yeah, it's all about what you can utilize and what you can get out. For me, it's like it's a different option. Throw him on a bench, you could change the game. Do you know what I mean? And then teams have to prepare differently. He gives gaps and spaces because he's dominating or he's taken over two of your centre backs. Two of your second centre backs occupied. All of a sudden, space opens up. Do you know what I mean? For the
Yeah.
wingers or wide forwards that are on your team, if you're playing in a free, for example. So
He
there's
might have been just he might have just been born in the wrong time because I feel like he's a bit of I say throwback.
he is a throwback.
You know,
What's number 9?
yeah, like I feel like 10, 15 years ago, like people would have been falling over hand over fist to get a striker like Ivan Toney.
Yeah, he's a basketball.
So yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
But like I said, you know, we go back to this word profiles. Like we bought our fan base was a bit split again with Odegaard. Odegaard now is basically what I thought Eze might have been. Can play as a number 10.
Yeah,
Play on the left wing, play predominantly left wing for Burnley, but can also play on the right wing as well because he played in the right wing for Burnley as well. And then for the club, I can't remember the name, French club, he played for them on the right wing as well. PSG, when he was playing for them in the academy, played on both wings. So I think with Odegaard, he profiles a bit more as a wide winger compared to an Eze. Some people say Eze is not a winger at all. He's a straight 10. Do you know what I mean? But I'd say that
I think he's a left wing forward.
I would say it's a left wing forward or a wide forward, like
Yeah,
player that drifts. Do you know what I
yeah,
mean? Drifts. What I saw with Odegaard, his link up play with Madison,
yeah,
the ball was quite good. I think he was brave, so he's going to lose the ball a lot because he's always forward thinking. How can I affect the game going forward? So with those players there, they're going to lose the ball quite a lot, and I'm happy with that because you want a different kind of profile to just pace and power. Because a lot of people think in the Premiership you can only survive if you've got the P and P. But I disagree. I think if you're a technical player, there's ways you can beat players without using your pace.
yes,
Your power.
yes,
So there's two different profiles. Like Madison, for example, he hasn't got pace, he hasn't got power. But for a numerous amount of times, I saw Madison for Leicester as a right midfielder, as a right winger,
yeah,
and on his weaker foot. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
Or equally for Spurs, he's played on in the 8 role, but he drifts off to the left, and the amount of times he's done cutbacks, you know, for some of our players on that left hand side when he gets to the byline, you know. But you know, like, he could play that role as well. Do you know what I mean? Without using pace or power, he just uses what he has, which is an actual footballer, dropping the shoulder and beating your man. You know. So
yeah. No, I agree. I agree. So
it comes
let's.
down to profiles. Yeah, go on.
No, yeah, I agree. Oliver Simon, can't NUC get Tony on loan? I don't know if you saw Oliver Simon. It looks like he's getting like 600K a week from Saudi Arabia. There's nothing that we can do about that. Well, we can, but we can't at the same time. Early doors football. Philip Ash, great show. Thank you, sir. Love the chat. Got to bounce. Need to stock up the cupboards. Enjoy your weekend and good luck with your team results. Big up to you. Thank you, sir. And Ben Spurs, I wish Trippier was still starting for Newcastle. Odegaard would love to. So, speaking of Trippier, Livramento, starting lineups, tactics, let's get into it. let's get into it. Are you able to share your screen, Ash?
Yeah, let me try and share the screen. Will it allow me to share the screen? Let's have a go. Could you tell me your starting lineup as I try to present?
Yes, sure, absolutely. So what I think. Say that again.
I'll see if I've got it right.
Yeah. Okay, excellent. It's me to add to stage. Brilliant.
Yeah, you're in control, bro. You're in control.
I'm in control. All right. So I think you have.
So I've got Pope.
Yes, I agree.
Burn as a left-sided centre back. Craft as
yes.
a right. Kelly. Kelly to start left back. Is that right?
Yeah.
I've got Livermore.
He started against Bournemouth. He started against Bournemouth away. I think obviously Hall was in the League Cup game, but I think that's League Cup. I think.
Yes. I thought that was your not marquee signing, but that was one of the signings you identified very early.
Well, we wanted him and Tosin, but yes, Kelly, yeah.
So Kelly, yeah. So and then I've got Gomeris in the 6, quite deep there, picking up that ball off Kraft or off the fullback, either way. And then I've got Joe Linton as a left-sided midfielder. Is that right?
Yeah.
Tonali on the right. Yeah, on the right side of the field. And then I've got hugging the touchline, going from out to in. I've got Barnes on your left.
Yeah.
And I've got Gordon on the right. Is that correct as well?
Yeah.
That's the reason I said Barnes on the left because I saw that last season as well. I saw Barnes pop up on the left, and then I've got Isaac as the lone striker.
Yes.
Creating as you can see, there's a small diamond here. I don't know if you guys can see that. See if I can draw some lines on there.
With Isaac and Tonali and Joe Linton.
Yeah, so Isaac is here. And Tonali and Joe Linton, yeah. So I don't know if this is a line you can see, a diamond there.
Yeah.
And that's basically it's a different type of box midfield because normally we talk about box midfields dominating teams, and that's how Tottenham play with a 3 in midfield in a 4-3-3. But the formation I've got in here is doggy inverting with Basuma in the 6 and Madison there higher up. I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
Got Madison here, and you've got the doggy there. And so let's bring the football over here. So I think
is that in the build-up or?
Yeah, this is the build-up. So what we've got is Romero splitting here and Van der Ven splitting wide here. So we've got the 2 centre backs splitting.
Yeah.
When Vicario has the ball, so he's got an option to play over to Van der Ven. I feel like Romero's our natural ball progressor. So I think that's when you see like a Barnes will probably get in that cover shadow. So you might see Barnes tuck in a bit. And you might see Isaac, for example. You might see him try to press Vicario. So you've got Porro inverting. So he's not hugging that line. He inverts to create a passing lane for Romero here in the midfield, or he can try and do it there. That's why Barnes is in that shadow where he cuts off that passing lane to Porro or even a Johnson, unless Romero goes over the top. So are you with me so far?
Yeah. So in terms of, because they were saying, or I was watching one of the shows, so do you see it as a 3-5-1-1 sort of formation that they go into?
So what for Newcastle?
For Tottenham. When you guys are...
So yeah, for Tottenham, let me get rid of these lines. I see it as I was hoping for a back 3. For a back 3, but so far we haven't done that. I don't know if it's the opposition, and I don't know if he's going to change things. And I thought maybe Basuma would drop in here to make the back 3. Do you know what I mean? And you'd see a doggy drop in to help. Actually, not a doggy. It's more Porro that drops in. Porro is more the one that turns into a pivot. And I've seen a doggy, rather than, he does play central at times, but I've seen him in more or less the half space, with Odeberg dropping a little bit wider. So it looks like that. So you've got a triangle. If I can get some more lines on, you've got a triangle here with Mackie Van and then Odeberg
Yeah.
and a doggy. That's the free triangle on the wide space. So you've got width here, and then you've got a central triangle here with these three, and then also you've got a triangle there with Johnson and Porro.
Yeah.
I'm saying with Madison at times, if I can bring Madison in, dropping in to make another double pivot. So we don't. I was hoping for that, but we don't do that. Sorry, Toon.
I was watching, because I watched a bit of Spurs Unwrapped, and I think they're saying, I can kind of see it from the game against Everton in particular, where you guys are playing a 3-5-1-1 formation, and the kind of the benefit of it was that the balance was you can have 5 strikers in the opposition end, and obviously 5 defenders, depending on where your wing backs are. So
basically, Kulizeski would be
yes,
Johnson's hugging wide. But what my counter is, what Newcastle will do at times. Newcastle are happy to go into a back 5, drop into a 5.
Yes.
So that's what I saw. So you might see Ramirez be a part of that back 5. So you've got like a back 3 here with these two, just to counter Spurs. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's a 5-4-1 where you've got maybe Gordon helping out Livramento, Tonali dropping in, Joe Linton dropping in here, and then that's a block. Do you know what I'm saying? When you've got Porro. What was it you said? There was a 5. What?
A 3-5-1-1. So what they said, Van der Ven, Romero, and Bissouma formed a sort of like I forgot how to describe it. No,
basically, you've got these 3, and you've got Van der Ven, Bissouma, and Romero as a base,
with Porro and Udogie as your wing backs on either side, type of thing. So yes, they can push forward, or they can kind of obviously hold back a little bit. So there's always that kind of. I think Udogie actually was most of the time next to Bissouma, with Madison up higher.
Right. Okay. So we swap this over. We'll put. So who's playing in the 3? Let's assume there's a back 3. Bissouma's in the 3, right? So
yeah.
Playing a doggy would be where? Here.
Somewhere. Yeah.
And Porro would be what?
Right next. So he has the opportunity. So Porro's a bit more free, so he can invert, stay out wide.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool. I saw it slightly different.
Okay.
When I watched it, but I mean that's what I think, because Kulu came in, and as you said, Porro was a bit more free. I did see that at times where the only thing I disagree was I didn't see Bissouma in the back 3. I still saw it as a 2. I saw Bissouma in front being lone 6, and sometimes Bissouma would join the attack. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So he was further up. Sorry. Yeah. So he was further up. So imagine if you've got the ball.
But if Bissouma's further up, then it's a 2.
Yes. So sorry, 2, 3. How did it go? 2, 3, 5. Like no, what is it? It was a 3-5-1-1, but it with Bissouma a little bit further up in the back 3.
Right. So Bissouma's basically, it's not a 3, but yeah, Bissouma's basically closest to the 2 centre backs.
Yes.
Them. And then you're saying the 5 would be what, Madison in the 5? Or
it would be, so you'd have Odeberg on the left, Madison, Kulu, Porro, Johnson.
Right. So Porro can never be here. It could technically be here. So a doggy would be in the midfield.
Next, yeah.
Like that. Yeah, essentially. Yeah. So if that's like I said, if that's the case, you'd have Madison would have to be in between the lines. You'd have to drift in between the lines.
Exactly.
To find Son or Kulusevski. A lot of people are saying they want Kulusevski though in this number 9 spot, and they want Johnson out. Let's put Johnson here for a second.
So Kulu's on the 9, Madison on one side, Porro on the other side, with Johnson and Oliver wide.
Yeah, they basically don't want Johnson. A lot of fans don't want Johnson. I can't see the comments because I'm on the tactics board right now and I can't really see. But from what I know, fans would prefer Kulu in this 9 because he sticks to him. He can drop in, he links play well. And they want Odobert on the right because he can play either left or right, and Son dropping wide. However, I feel like even though Son gets lost in the 9 at times, against Everton he played well in the 9. So I've got a feeling that I'm not sure if they're gonna drop Johnson. I think Johnson's his baby boy, and he likes to keep him there. So I think because Kulu did quite well in that 8 position, the right 8, the box-to-box 8 we call it, I think Johnson keeps his place and Son will stay up top.
So he'll have Kulu against Joe Linton. He'll match up Kulu with Joe Linton.
Yes, physicality for physicality. Right. Do you know what I mean? So I think it will be like Odobert back out on the left, Son back out there, and Johnson is going to be I wouldn't say power, but a lot of pace. Do you know what I'm saying? He's got the pace to kind of push Kelly back. So it'll be that's the matchup there. It will be Porro versus Barnes, but Kulu and Romero will be asked to help out at times when Joe Linton wants to be a battering ram. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
But I can see Barnes being the problem, and I can see also Grimaris switching that ball out to him, giving that ball, doing direct balls there. Do you know what I mean? Or just doing balls straight into Isak. I could see Isak dropping in at times, becoming a link man.
With questions on that, do you think, because obviously Ben Spurs made a good call, he said you don't think Howe will be tempted to put Gordon on the left, think that would cause Porro more issues than he would Udoji? I mean, my first thoughts were is if Gordon plays on the left, Howe will put Murphy on the right and Barnes will be on the bench. Right. I think when we played you guys last season, we had Gordon on the right and Barnes on the left, and talking about kind of balls in the ball into the box. Yeah. Gordon isn't bad with both feet. He actually came in as a right winger, but had to fill in the left wing forward position. But then he just exploded in that position. To answer your question, he is. I think if that in that particular situation, if Bruno turns and he sees Gordon rather than Barnes, you know, with that pace, it'll be a lot more scary. I can understand that. But with Gordon on the right, I think you've got the option where Gordon can still invert if he wants to, but he can also go on the outside and he can swing an early ball into Isak, or cut or go to the byline and do a cut. So I think Howe's got an extra option. But I don't know, what do you think? How do you think Howe will look at that?
I think it depends on who he thinks can do a job defensively out of possession. How he can protect, you know, in that 5-4, because I expect Spurs to have a lot of the ball like last time. Like we'll get a lot of possession, and that's why I think Barnes, from what I saw against Bournemouth, you got played. Yeah.
What, in the League Cup or?
No, in the last game, your last league game.
Bournemouth, yeah.
Yeah, last league game.
No, he was in the.
Did he not start?
No, he didn't start. He didn't start.
Right. So it's interesting. Because I thought like Bournemouth played quite well against you guys, and maybe if he had went for with Barnes to start, you guys would have had like a double threat on your wing forwards. Because Murphy doesn't pose the same threat as a Gordon and a Barnes.
I think Murphy's better defensively than Barnes at the just in terms of his willingness to get back, but he lacks obviously the potency going up the other way.
So maybe what it was, because you guys were away from home, he set up that way because he was aware of Bournemouth's wingers. They're quite
they're good.
They're really good. They've got good wide forward. They've got Clivert, Tavernier. They've got Sinister. They've got they've got a few wide players that can cause you problems. So maybe away from home, he was trying to learn how to, and it's quite a small pitch. Maybe
we're not good on small pitches.
Yeah, tactically, maybe. And that's why it comes back to, because you're at St. James's Park, you're in front of the Toon, and you've got a lot of space a lot of grass to run into. Maybe he sees that as an option to maybe start Barnes and Gordon and hit us, because we do play with two at the back. From what I see, I don't see Basuma dropping into the free and playing as a rest. I call it the rest defense as a 3-2-5. I don't really see that. So, I mean, you could disagree with that, but yeah.
What happens as well? Our midfielders are very essentially centre midfielders. Yes, some in terms of if you're picking up the ball from with your goal to the back to the goal, Ramirez is the man. But what I see sometimes happening with the introduction of Tonali in particular, what he might do is have Joe Linton at times picking up the ball, or at least coming into that six with Bruno filling in his slot. So what then you have is both Bruno and Tonali in those left wing and right, left mid and right mid positions in number 8, because they're both really good at passing and getting the ball off. So, and on the turn, Tonali in particular, his first touch or his first pass, he knows what he's doing before that. So if you can imagine a Tonali to Gordon, it's very dangerous, very, very quickly. Or Tonali to Issa.
Tonali in the 6, is that what you're saying? Drifting out.
So Joe Linton might go in the 6.
Oh. Okay.
So Joe Linton might go into the 6 if we're picking up the ball.
Yeah.
With Bruno Gomes and filling in on that side, where Joe Linton was.
Right.
And Tonali, on that right side.
Yeah. Right.
So there is that option. It's not ideal, but the idea is Joe Linton just pick the ball up and give it to Bruno or to Tonali. They will take care of,
I did see Joe Linton do that, and he made an error.
He did.
So you're right in that sense, where he can drop into the 6. That might be something that Spurs could pick up onto, because we are pressing quite well. We scored against Everton because Son was pressing the goalkeeper relentlessly, and Pickford made a mistake, and he's off the back of it. So I wonder if that's going to be a tactic where Spurs are aggressive in the press, and we normally press in a 4-4-2. So the 4-4-2 would obviously Odogi would be back here. You've got Kulu pressing Porro on the right back. Then you've got, sometimes it's Maddison, but I think it'll be Kulu that will be pressing, or sometimes it's Johnson leading the press.
Just to say, big up Toon Tactics. He's like I was saying, our three midfielders rotate.
Right.
So there's different kind of benefits and disadvantages. So yes, there was that one where he was Joe Linton was at fault. There was also like second half where he picked up the ball and turned. The best guys to obviously turn on the back to goals is Bruno and then Tonali. But between them, they rotate. So it's a lot harder it's supposed to be a lot harder to pick up.
Right.
Yeah, go on.
Yeah. No. I was just gonna say, I think for Spurs, the idea is that when we are in possession and you guys are out of possession, we look to win those second balls back as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
So the idea is that, because lots of fans are really concerned when we do play the 2-3-5, and it leaves us exposed in the channels because the fullbacks have inverted, and that's where you see the best of Gordon and Barnes in the pockets, not the pockets, sorry, in the wide areas, the wide channels. But the point is that when we lose the ball, we're meant to have a quick turnover, counter press, and then we're meant to like have a high opportunity of scoring a goal. But during the season, that wasn't quite working too well, and we were getting caught out because teams like Newcastle, you guys were doing maybe 1-2 passes and then going long.
Yeah.
Going long straight away, and then that would break our press. That's what I was going to say.
Yeah,
Wait.
and speaking of Gordon on the left, that's I think I forgot who mentioned it earlier. If it was Ben Spurs. If we're talking about matchups, if we're talking about tactics, I think Howe would prefer Gordon against Porro and can just go for him for pace. So then you might see that switch, or you might have starting there. But however, I don't think he likes Barnes on the right, which then goes back to Murphy. And I think it just makes it a bit blunt for us to have Murphy there, in my opinion. Gordon did have a good time against Udoji last time.
Yeah, and I think, you know what? It's actually carried on some of his mistakes. He's made a mistake against, I think it was Everton. He had a few mistakes, and Leicester as well. He had a few mistakes. So that's something on part of his game, or he needs to. He's quite a young player. He's still quite raw. So he needs to develop that side of his game where he needs to concentrate in possession. Because when we lose the ball, that's when we look most vulnerable. And maybe that's where teams will, Gordon might press aggressively against the doggy, hoping that he makes a mistake and then he turns the ball over. And then, all of a sudden, Gordon and Newcastle on the front foot. But yeah, from Joelinton's point of view, can he switch the ball, or is that down to Tonali and Gomes?
Yeah, that's where, that'll be down to Tonali. He's not switching, he's switching no ball. So I think it'll either be between Bruno and Tonali. I think primarily we will try to push you guys out wide, so we will be very compact in the center. So you probably have, so then at least we can determine where you guys are going to attack. Because if you start going through the center, we're very in trouble. Postecoglou, I think, is going to try do what he does, which is flood the center. So your eights are going to really push up high, and I think you talked about. I watched the previous show. Part of your concern, from what I remember, is Udogie and Romero inverting, and yes, you're over flooding the midfield and you're getting that midfield dominance. However, your flanks are wide open, and with Gordon and Barnes, you then got free reign. We haven't even mentioned Isak yet. With Gordon and Barnes, you've got you've got the guys to kind of hit you on the flanks, So I think there's going to be a real kind of cat and mouse in that situation.
Yeah, 100%. I think, there's. I mean, people. Well, I think with the whole premise of packing the midfield is to create a superiority, so we outnumber the low block. So you're trying to outdo the low block. So let's say let's go back to this again. Let's suppose you guys are doing the 5 in defense, and then you've got a 4 here, and then a 5-4-1. Let's call it a 5-4-1.
Yeah.
As you said, so maybe Livramento is a bit more here. Kraft is closer to the D. Joelinton's there. Tonali fills in, Gomes fills in, Barnes is here as well, helping out, and then Isak is the lone soldier, the lone dog. I think the idea is that you've got Son and Brennan Johnson hugs wide, Odegaard hugs wide again right here, so you've got width there to kind of like, that's where we kind of hurt Newcastle. We're saying, look, we know that you want to compact these areas, but we've got our dogs that are going to get to the byline and then potentially cut back. Do you know what I'm saying? Or do a first time cross into this particular area, and then our players would flood into the box, e.g. your Madisons, your Kulizeskis. Do you know what I mean? So that's the premise of it. But with your height and your physicality, you don't mind dealing with, like, balls crossed into the box.
Yeah.
I think that's the reason why we spray it on the floor, because we know that, you've got Burn that's 6 foot plus. He's going to be able to head that ball. Joe Linton, he's no shorty. You know what I'm saying?
But also, I think if we kind of even go back to the last game, because the last game we had even a worse backline than we've got now, because I think we had, I forgot who we had, but it was, I remember looking at it, like, wow, this is even worse than we had before. Yeah. And the key was in terms of, because I was really worried about your wing play at the time as well, and I thought, how are we going to do those cutbacks? And what happened really, really well was actually Barnes and Gordon did really well in supporting our right back and our left back in terms of, so what would happen is, say in this game it'll be Kelly and it'll be Livramento. They don't necessarily, when you guys hit out wide, the key for Kelly and Livramento, if you can get the ball. But if you can slow down either Johnson or Odegaard and wait for Gordon and that to come back, then the whole kind of play in terms of getting into the wings and trying to do the cutbacks has less of a chance of working. And then what happened was, especially in that game, we was able to get the ball, and the first thing we did is obviously get it to Bruno, and the first thing he did within 2 touches was obviously get it to Isak or to Gordon, and that's where the damage is done. Because you commit yourself so hard through that midfield, it can bear fruit a lot, but if it doesn't, you get hit on those flanks really well. So I kind of feel like Eddie Howe will be banking on you to kind of depend on your wings to do that. In my point of view, for me, the fear would be looking at that. The fear would be is that's why I was so worried about you whether Solanke would be fit, because you've got that target man, not kind of at least you've got someone who you can do some direct play to. You can just totally avoid our midfield to get to kind of hit us on the break. Or if obviously you got the ball and you're pressing how you were just there, you can play through the middle. Because then if you can isolate Kraft, for instance, of Solanke, it's going to be very dangerous for us. Either he goes past, he lets shots off, he lays the ball off to Kulu, Basuma, or whoever else is coming. But without the option of a Solanke, I know Kulu's there. And that's what the Joe Linton and Tonali element really comes into their play. That's what helps Bruno. So because Bruno, with a Tonali and Joe Linton, Bruno has to do a little bit less of the tackling, the tracking back. He'll be doing it, but a little bit less. And the focus then will be is get the ball to Bruno and let him hit the pass. Obviously, with a Tonali as well, you've got somebody else who can do the diagonals.
Yeah. I've just put the last team's lineup in. I don't know if you want to share that.
Say that again? Yeah, please do. Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah.
So basically, your lineup last season shows not even Pope in goal. You had
Dubravka,
Dan Ban captain as a left back, Fabian Schär as the centre back, and Kraft. Those were your 2 centre backs.
Yeah.
So obviously no Kelly, but yeah,
Jacob Murphy at right back.
Jacob Murphy at right back. See, so that again, 2 players that weren't even fullbacks playing at fullback. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Dan Burn had to do that for a lot of the season, if I remember right.
He did.
Then you had Elliot Anderson in the 3 with Bruno Guimaraes and Longstaff. 2 different profiles.
Totally.
To what we just showed there with Joe Linton and Tonali. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're going to ask far more different questions. But again, tactically, he got it spot on. And then, wait a minute. It was this, this was the 4-0 one, wasn't it? Yeah, I was just double checking it was the 4-0, yeah. And Harvey Barnes was on the left, as we said, Isaac at top, and Anthony Gordon on the right. For Spurs, we had Son down the middle.
You did, yeah.
Brennan Johnson on the right, Maddison in the 10, and Werner on the left. And then the double pivot was between Basuma and Bentancur. Do you know what I mean? Our back 4 was our back 4, our back 5 was our back 5. That hasn't changed. And I just felt in that midfield, we didn't really serve a lot of presence. There wasn't a lot of presence there for me in that midfield. There was a lot of loose balls from both Bentancur and Basuma. I thought what worked well for Spurs was getting down the sides. Actually, that was working. Timo Werner missed a glorious chance when Johnson fizzed the ball into the box and he hit it over the bar. And there was a time when Madison got on the outside and he fed it to Timo Werner and he skewed the shot. And that was the first 20 to 30 minutes, if I remember right.
Yeah.
So the plan was working, but I just felt when we tried to, stifle you guys in the midfield, we weren't playing through you at all. We weren't really getting that much joy. And Son would sometimes drop into the midfield or he would drop off into the right-hand side. And if I just bring up players' average positions, what I'll do is I'll go through Tottenham's real quick because I just want to talk Son. And what I did see was Son, he drifted off into this right-hand area quite a bit to pick the ball up, and you want your number 9 in the box.
You want him up there, yeah.
How little he is in the box when he's playing in this number 9 position. Do you know what I mean? You kind of want your number 9 to be central and to be in that 6-yard around that penalty spot, creating havoc. And I think that we missed a trick there. As I said, we had Basuma in the midfield on the left-hand side and Bentancur occupying the right-hand side quite a bit. And I don't think they affected the game the way Ange thought they might do. You can see it's a double pivot because they're slightly off center. They're slightly, one's further back, one's slightly higher, but they're close to each other. And we're quite narrow. I don't know if you can see that. Like Werner hugging the touchline. Johnson was quite wide at times when he did start in that first half, but then he became a centre forward and his average position was there in the middle. Porro, not too far advanced. His heat map was pretty much down here, and he actually came off injured at one point. That's how much savagery that we're doing now. That we had to bring on Real for the rest of the game, and then you know what happened next when from that long ball. Bruno Gomes played into Isaac, and he ended up scoring, running in from his own half. But yeah, I just thought it was interesting. Let me just go through Newcastle's average positions. We go to Anthony Gordon that you were talking about. I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah.
But you can see that right-hand side, he was dominating. And then he took a lot of corner kicks. Took a lot of corner kicks. But yeah.
He really hugged that right-hand side. And even if you go back to like even our end of the pitch, like I was saying, the whole key was to slow down the wing for who's our right back, Jacob Murphy, to slow down Timo Werner. But we can get the ball, but slow down Timo Werner and wait for Gordon to get back.
Yeah, you can see that there. And just even going back to Gordon, I just saw like it's not heavily there, but his goal and assist was coming from that other side. So even though he was playing on the right, he did find himself switching over at times on that left-hand side, drifting over. So I think that could be a key feature for tomorrow's game. Looking at Harvey Barnes, he pretty much stayed on that left-hand side, he didn't drift over. So at times you're dealing with players of Gordon switching over, Harvey Barnes keeping it on that side. So you've got two problems, two headaches, one that's super wide, one that's in the half space.
Yes.
Becoming a second striker almost. With Isaac again. I think that right-hand side was prevalent because look, you've got Isaac again dropping over into Porro's position on that left. So Porro's that right back. Isaac's playing on the left, causing problems again. Again, that's where you want your number 9. Look at his heat map, predominantly on the penalty spot. Do you know what I mean? You can see him in the build-up at times, but that's where you want your number 9, essentially.
It was really intelligent from Isaac that day.
Yeah, exactly. Knowing when to run, when to go. Bruno Gomes, as you can see, a lot of the heat map, picking up that ball deep, and he was doing a lot of switcher plays. If we go into some of his metrics, you can see that he won almost half of his duels were won.
Yeah.
Errol Jules was winning. I wanted to see if there was any long ball stats because I wanted to
Yeah,
see.
those are the top long balls.
So 7, he attempted 7, completed 5 of them. 5 of them were accurate. So that's the reason why SofaScore
Crazy.
is such a high scoring, because even though he only got one key pass, was it one key pass he got there? I think he might be in the he was involved in the play. He was involved in the build up, or some of the chances he didn't put away, which SofaScore won't mention. He was involved with it because he was able to switch the play. He was able to go direct into Harvey Barnes or Isaac or Gordon. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he was a big reason for why he got played. Out of the dribbles attempted as well, three he did, but 2 were successful. So yeah, key player in that role. I thought he was an honourable mention. Kraft had a good game with it, and Shaw, playing quite well. Go on.
And obviously he's very good on the ball, both-footed, and excellent with the long balls as well. So that's the. And speaking of Shaw,
Yes.
and composing the ball, he's obviously not playing. Relating to the question that's here below, David Eddie, and I was wondering this myself. I'll be good to get your angle. So why should Kraft start? We care paying. We're paying Kelly Fortunes to play. Super composed, great on the ball. So I think what he's suggesting is, rather than playing Kelly as left back, put him as right centre back. Put him as left centre back with Burn maybe as right centre back. And I know some people don't like that because obviously Burn, just like Kelly's left-footed, and you're not gonna get the right angles of passes and all of that other palaver. In your view, obviously we've talked about lineups. We've seen the kind of the strengths of what Newcastle had last time going for them. Do you think Howe would consider putting Kelly as in one of the centre back positions and put Hall at left centre back instead, or do you think no, Kelly will probably be left back, Hall on the bench, and Burn and Kraft as the centre backs?
It depends what he prioritizes, what he appreciates more. I mean, I think with Kelly, you're looking at his recoveries in terms of, you're thinking about Brennan Johnson. Ange is going to want to play Brennan Johnson because of his pace, his ability to run in behind, stretch defenses. Maybe he's thinking on that side of a defensive side of things rather than on the ball. What he's going to provide, because I do see that ball progression, Kelly in the left side of centre back would help Newcastle a lot, and then you could obviously have Hall there, and you kind of you've got two options there where you've got 2 ball playing centre backs to progress the ball. But again, it's not just about what you guys are doing, it's about what we're doing, and maybe as a safer option to have a Kelly as a fullback going against either a Brennan Johnson, you could be lethal running in behind. Although he may not, take his man on a lot, because that's been the biggest critique of Johnson. He still does have a lot of pace, and when he does get into those areas, the reason why he had 10 assists is because he has good separation between himself and his fullback. And when he does get that time, he's trying to fire that ball across the box first time. He's not trying to cut back at all. And when you've got a player like that can fire a ball across the box into a dangerous area, that's Ange ball. Typically, that's how we scored a lot of our goals. Do you know what I mean? And maybe just maybe Howe's looking at that as a potential threat in terms of how can we deal with that, as opposed to what are we going to do in possession, especially if you're going to give up a lot of possession as well. If you're going to give up a lot of possession and Tottenham are going to have a lot of it, then maybe that's why he's going for that option, in my opinion.
I totally agree. So before we go into the predictions, just going to go through the comments for folks. Benjamin Maven, I think he's talking to Davey. Try him. Davey, yeah. So you said he thought maybe try Kelly at left centre back, but I agree. I think Hall is doing well. I think though there's I think there's a lot riding on this game, and the fact that Hall started against Southampton, but Sugawara, Japanese right back, really quite hurt him a few times. And with everything said, I think Howe needs to ensure that we'll get some points from this game going into the international break. So I think that'll be in his thinking too. We spoke about that. Davey, Eddie, lads, just turned football focus off watching you on the big telly. Big up there. You see that we're taking people away from football focus. Look at that. And Ben Spurs, do you expect Newcastle to play with a high line? I think it's the only way we can get anything out of this game. Really good question, because I think we focused on, and I think it's rightly to focus on it, because I do think Tottenham will have more of the ball, so we kind of focus more on that and that kind of element of it, because I think that's what's going to happen.
Yes.
Would Newcastle play a high line?
I think so. At times in possession, yeah, I think you will. I think you will play a high line. But I think when you lose the ball, you'll quickly transition back into the 5-4-1 shape that I was speaking about. And there is going to be moments when, we can get at your team. We can get into those spaces in behind. But again, it's about the second ball wins for Newcastle. Can you recover that ball quickly when you lose position? Do you know what I mean? I think that's the battle, and I think the midfield that you guys possess now is slightly different. It'll be interesting to see if you are slightly more offensive now, because you do have a Tonali playing
and Joe Linton,
and you have a Joe Linton as opposed to a Longstaff and an Anderson, with a Murphy as a right back and a Dan Burn as a left back.
Yeah.
You know, it's tactically could be slightly different. So that's the reason why I reckon you guys will have a high line. You might push up a bit. A lot of fans, I don't know. Are you guys thinking that you've been playing a bit lethargic, a bit slow, a bit negative in your first games?
For me, it's hard to judge the Southampton game because we went down to 10 men. So for me, like the common theme from all of them, I think off the ball we've been okay to good.
Yeah.
And I think our natural fitness and athleticism has helped us to grind out results.
Mm-hmm.
The problem, almost like embarrassing and awkwardly, is exactly when we're on the ball, especially from playing out the back. And you can constantly see, for instance, when Bernard's on the ball, Bruno calling him to at least take on the ball. I heard you in the last video saying, obviously, there's a difference between take on and actual dribbles. We're just asking Byrne to do a take on, just push the ball forward, because we're always having to look back towards you, and we can't focus on the other end. And so I think I said to you before that the best thing Spurs could do, if he really wanted to do, was to give Newcastle the ball, especially in that type of circumstance, and counter press.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
It slightly changes of a Tonali who's better than Joe Linton, for instance, with his back to goal. It gives us another option from playing out the back. And sometimes you could have him or Bruno dropping in between the centre backs and bringing the ball out. You can do that.
Does Tonali need match fitness? Because
exactly. Go on.
Now I was going to say, I'm not sure if he's up to speed quite yet. Would he be the player that might be sacrificed in second half if things aren't going your way, if it's a little bit more tighter? Because I think, as I said at the beginning of the video, we were the architect of our own downfall, of our own mistakes. We were just literally a doggy just falling over, Porro pass back, sloppy at play at times, loose balls. I do understand with Spurs, we're a high risk, high reward type of team where we try to do adventurous passes into tricky areas. That's how we break the low block. But at the same time, when you do lose the ball, that can create situations where we play into your hands quite a bit, and you hurt us on the transition, on a counter attack. But at the same time, I could say easily, like, if Tonali's not quite on it, Joe Linton, as I said, making mistakes from playing out from the back. You guys haven't started with a house on fire. Like your forwards haven't been prolific. I mean, I know Gordon has scored in the last game, and Isaac has contributed for you guys going forward. But compared to last season, you're not quite at the races at how you was before. And so, you know, as the game goes on and you don't hurt us within those first 20 minutes or 30 minutes, do we get confidence? Do Spurs get confidence now? And the difference, I think, between this game and last game was literally a Werner. You know, we created chances, but they kept falling to Werner, and not having someone that was strong in that number 9 position. Even though I don't fear, and I do fear that Son may play in that number 9 role again. He can press effectively, and he did press well, and that led to one of his goals. But at the same time, he does drift off, he does go wide, he can lose possession at times, and that could be another problem for Spurs, where we're not holding on to the ball, we're not able to hurt teams because of a Son-Heung-min, a Udogie, a Benton Core, or a Basuma, depending who's playing, and that can cause problems in itself. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and you're right. Your assessment of Newcastle is absolutely correct, I think, and it's been very awkward for us, especially on the ball at the moment. That's why, obviously, the thumbnail is clash of styles. I think if Spurs do what they would like to do on the and especially, which is press, high risk, high reward, you kind of make up our minds for us that we will defend and we'll hit you in the break, which is what we kind of want to do. Because God help us if we want to play out from the back at the moment. We're not doing that. So we're kind of banking on that almost, I would say. But we will press. I think that, and the other way, I was actually thinking that, especially with Newcastle and Tottenham games, in like the last couple of seasons, both home and away, I think the game is won in the first 15 to 45 minutes, really, nowadays. And I think in terms of speaking of Tonali, he lasted 60 minutes against Nottingham Forest, and he was vomiting like halfway through that game, which is fine. But he will be fit at least for 60 minutes from this game. So we'll see how it goes. So we'll go on to the predictions before we wrap up the show. Folks, thank you so much for so many of the comments already that have come in. We talked about, Ben Spurs to exploit the transitions when Newcastle are dropping out of position. For me, Bentancur has to start to exploit it. Basuma will play the ball quick enough to wingers. Davey Eddie, Hall is a good wing. Is good going forward, but he's good cop, bad cop losing the ball. Yeah, and he's not quick, but I will give him another chance at left back. Good analysis going on, fellas. Thank you, Davey Eddie. So, Ash.
Yes.
Predictions. I'll give you the choice as a special guest. Do you want me to go first, or do you want to go first with your predictions for the game?
Yeah, you can go first.
Right. So I am worried about this game. I know that obviously we've had the 2 last seasons at home where we've done really, really well. Howe has done well to get Newcastle getting results despite not playing well. How much has the transfer window and the whole atmosphere around the transfer window affected Newcastle or some of the players? Has this seeped into the dressing room? Might be a concern, but Howe has done well to kind of protect us from it. On the other hand, there is some soft tissue, if I can, in the Spurs' defense, and it's by design. They are high risk and they are high reward. I think this will be a hell of a game. I think it'll be a 2-2 draw.
I think Newcastle. I haven't spoke about you guys' ability to do a box midfield. Right. I picked up on it. I was watching. It wasn't necessarily last season. It was the season before, because Tonali came in, and he was the one forming the double pivot with Grimaris at times, and I saw Joe Linton kind of push out wider in that left hand space, not in wide space, but like in between, you know, the half space. And what I saw sometimes was Isaac would drop in, and it was Almarim at the time, would come off the right flank, and you'd have like a domination in midfield. And it goes back to my high line point. And I'm thinking, will at times in possession, Eddie Howe go back to that to create some type of control in the midfield? And if that's the case, and you've got you're shifted over to one side when you're in possession, could Spurs isolate one of your fullbacks and get in behind? And so I'm looking at the fullbacks you're having in Livramento. Is it a possibility we could target your right hand side, which is our left, and maybe use 3 players that I spoke about in terms of Odeberg being a tricky winger, Doggy, Madison being a bit of a problem? What I saw different and promising for Spurs from my analysis against Everton, and why we were so much more of a threat, was because we were a lot more direct. We weren't trying to pass through the lines as much. When there was times to go along, we did that. And so that might confuse Newcastle a bit and make them stand off a little bit, where I saw Madison in central spaces getting on the end of long balls from either Basuma or Romero, balls over the top. Even Vicario would try to go long to him sometimes. And so is there a possibility where Spurs can get something out of this? Possibly. But as a fan and a worried fan, I always go back to what happened in the past. And, you know, despite, you know, our own doings and mistakes, I saw like if we go down within those first 20 minutes, or if we go down in total, it's like Spurs just don't have that. We really got a soft belly. We really need to sort that out. And so I can see us losing against Newcastle, not as emphatic as the 4-0, but maybe something a bit closer, like a 2-1.
Okay.
I hope for a draw, though. I do hope for a draw, a score draw. It could be a 1-1 or 2-2. Ultimately, I want a win, but and that would lift the place. But my head says Spurs lose, and my heart says a draw. So you take it. You could take any result you want, but I'm going to go for a 2-1 Newcastle. A 2-1 Newcastle. And I think the reason why I go for a 2-1 Newcastle, because you haven't looked yourself. I think the third game's when you kick into gear. Do you know what I mean? And set pieces is one thing I haven't mentioned. And you guys have a hell of a lot of corners against us. And finally, like, we got undone back post. Do you know what I'm saying? Back post, we got undone. Was it Schur that scored? I think
Yeah.
He was sleeping again. He did it against Bayern Munich. They ended up scoring. And if Kulusevski's playing again, I can imagine one of our fullbacks maybe being Porro and someone else saying, "No, that was your zone." You know, we do a zonal marker thing, some zonal, some man marking, and we don't know what we're quite doing yet. And even against Everton, we were shaky in corners. We wasn't clinical. We like a bit like, you know, headless chickens and ping pong in the ball in the box. Sorry. So yeah, that's something I also worry about, because Newcastle can be dominant. You've got that height, you've got that physicality, and we're not going to have a tall, dominating striker like a Solanke or Richarlison to defend those corners. Kane used to be really good for us in defending set pieces and corners. So that's another avenue why I think we could get undone from that. And if that happens, Lord of mercy, after the window we've had. You know, I know from your perspective, it looks like a great window, but a lot of fans are unhappy with the window because Ange was talking up a title race. And so we were thinking title contender players.
Tony, Eze, all of that.
Yeah, you know, I'm glad you know. Alongside a win, hey, for a YouTuber, it's great content.
Yeah.
You know, as a fan, it's horrible. You know, it's a horrible place to be. But I'm here for both of it. But yeah, bro.
Brilliant. It's funny, we did like hardcore analysis, but when we had to do the prediction, we spoke as worried, emotional fans. Which is how it turns out to be. Ash, it has been an absolute pleasure to have you here, and I wish Tottenham and Newcastle could play each other every other week so we can do these shows. But it is the Premier League. We do change teams and whatnot, but I've learned so much. I'm sure the chat has been really, really good as well. Tons of questions. People are really, really appreciating the show. So big thank you for you to coming on. And guys, make sure you send in your predictions. How do you think the game will go? Where do you think the tactics? What do you think is going to be the main focus? Is it going to be Tottenham on the ball, their high pressing, their all-out attacks? Is it going to be Newcastle on the counter press, or is it going to be a surprise? Is it going to be Newcastle giving it to Tottenham and doing the higher pressing? Are we going to do that box midfield that Ash talked about? Let us know. And until next time, folks, guys, take care and God bless.
Oh, brilliant from Sham. And now Murphy could take on the shot.